Welcome to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a global vitiligo awareness and education podcast. You will hear the true and authentic stories from people living with vitiligo. You'll also hear from their loved ones, medical professionals, licensed mental health therapists, relationship counselors, global vitiligo support foundations and organizations, community leaders, and so much more. Sit back and enjoy living life and love. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. So my guest for today is Lisa Toner. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
So how are you
Hi.
today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a rough week for me because of the pollen and I'm highly allergic to it. So it's been a little rough, but I'm hanging in there.
That's good to hear, Mark. Yeah, it's springtime and I do sometimes have allergies. I live in New York. So usually my allergies usually start around like the end of April and all the way until like the end of May. Then after that, I'm good for a few months. And then in the fall, it starts again for a couple of weeks. So
I understand. I wish I could say it stops. I have year-round allergies, so I'm allergic to grass and trees and weed
so
that
sorry.
grows out here, not other stuff. But yeah, it's just a part of living on this planet. I love everything with nature, but nature also says, "Hey, I got a little something for you. I'm gonna make you sneeze. I'm gonna make your nose itch. I'm gonna make you not feel well." So it is what it is. So let's go ahead and get started with our discussion. So this is a vitiligo discussion. I know my guest will say, well, he talks about everything. I do. But this one is in particular about vitiligo. And we're going to talk about your journey and share some other things about vitiligo, talk a little bit about the conferences, and then wrap things up. So let's start with the biggest talking point is, when did your vitiligo start? And what was that like for you, seeing that first spot turning into maybe 3 or 4 spots?
Okay, well, I was 25 years old. I was in the prime of my life. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and that's really not very uncommon for a lot of 20-somethings. You have your own apartment, you feel pretty good about your life, you feel pretty optimistic about the future, you're working really hard, or you're going to school. So at that time, I was working as a freelance reporter for a small town Texas newspaper, and I was also working as a food server at a local restaurant. So I started it was the fall of 1996, and I started getting these little white dots on my hands. Started right around my cuticles area, and I had like 3 spots on my left hand, and then had like 2 spots on the right hand. So after a couple weeks, I asked my manager, I said, hey, has anybody reported anything about maybe like a chemical reaction to something like a cleaner that we're using? Because I was not, even though at the restaurant we had gloves to clean at the end of the night, I didn't use them. I was just
Right.
wanted to get my stuff done and then go home, So that was the deal. So I asked my manager, and he said, "No, Lisa, nobody has said anything." It's like, what's going on? So I showed my manager my hands, and he was like, that's interesting. And I go, yeah, it really is interesting. I said, it doesn't hurt, doesn't hurt. It's just these little white spots,
Right.
So after a couple weeks, I started to notice that the spots were getting a little bit larger in size. And so inside, I kind of started to panic a little. I worked as a food server. That was like my main job. But sometimes I helped out with the to-go orders. I helped out with host not hosting. Yeah, I guess as a hostess person.
Right.
So I was very visible to the public. So when I started to see that the little white spots on my hands were getting a little bigger, I was like, uh-oh, this can't be good. So I talked to my mother about it. My mom is a nurse. She worked as a civilian nurse for a while, then she got into the military. So I called my mother up and I said, Ma, I said, something's going on with my skin. I don't know what it is. I need you to look at it. so I mean, because I trusted my mom's judgment, So so I went down and, my mom said, I think you better go see a doctor. My mother asked me all these, questions. I said, no, Mom, it doesn't itch. It's not getting red. It's just these little, I said, so she asked me like when it started, and so I told her.
Right.
So she said, I think you better make an appointment to see a primary doctor and see what they say. So that's what I did. So I made an appointment. My primary doctor immediately knew what it was. He immediately knew that it was vitiligo. And he said, oh yeah, he said, that's vitiligo. It's what Michael Jackson had. And he says, we really don't have a lot of treatment options for it right now. There is no cure for it. And then he said some other stuff. In my mind, Mark, in my mind, after he said there's no cure for it.
Right.
I did not hear hardly anything else he said.
Yep.
I just kind of froze there on the chair and I was like, oh no, how am I supposed to live my life? It was like everything came to a standstill.
Right.
Right? I'm like, what? I mean, I had a lot of questions, but I was very not in a very good mental place for
Right.
a couple of seconds there, but my doctor told me, he said listen, he said I want to have you see a specialist, go to a dermatologist, and they'll be able to diagnose you. But he said, but I already know it's vitiligo.
Wow.
But if you want to see a specialist, I would highly recommend so and so. You can go there. And I said, okay. So a couple weeks later, I go to the dermatologist, and he looks over my hands, and he asked me if I had any spots anywhere else, and he did the whole timeline thing, when did it start and everything else, and asked me a whole bunch of questions. And so he told me about the dermatologist told me a little bit about the UVA treatment, which I at that time was not covered by insurance. I could not afford it.
Right.
And then he said, again, there's no cure for it. He said, try to, he said, try not to stress yourself out about it, because when you stress can make it worse.
Yep, absolutely.
So I said, what can I possibly do then?
Stress.
He said, what do you like to do? He said, find something that you really like to do. Like if you like to go hiking, go hiking. If you like, music, he said, find something that you really like to do and do that a few times a week. If you like to exercise, go, play tennis, go run, whatever. My biggest question was, how much worse is this going to get? Right. I said, if I leave my skin alone, if I can't afford the treatments, I said, how, is this going to be like half of my body? Like what's going to happen to me in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line? So that's when he told me, it's unpredictable. It's an autoimmune, and so he wanted to know if I had anybody else in my family that had this. And I said, no, to my knowledge, I do not. But I did let him know that I was diagnosed with a thyroid issue when I was 18 years old. So he says, okay. He said that may have something to do with the vitiligo. At that time, he was kind of unsure, but he said there
Right.
may be something there. Um, because this was 1996.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
And the internet was new.
Yes.
America Online was just coming,
Yep.
coming together. So he told me if I wanted to look up some information about vitiligo, there was some information about vitiligo online, but he recommended me to, go to the library, look some stuff up, and also look up some other skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis, because they're all in the same family. So I did that. He told me that there is no cure for vitiligo, but if I wanted to try some of the creams and gels for some of the other skin conditions, I could. So I said, okay, well, I wasn't, too enthusiastic about it. So I talked to my mother about it, and my mother said, it's up to you. What do you want to do? So a few months after that, so I want to say it was probably like maybe February of 97. Went back to the dermatologist, and he tells me there's an ointment called neem cream, NEEM. It was on the market. It was mainly for patients who had arthritis, patients who had eczema. He said, I don't know if it's going to work for vitiligo, but you can try it. It's
Right.
really good for the skin. So we ordered it online. It was a small little jar, and it was probably at that time I think it was like maybe $20 for a small little thing. So I put it on my hands, and it was a little greasy. I didn't really like it. I like the feel. So I put a little bit on my hands, and I was like, I don't know. So I tried that for a few months, nothing happened. And then as time progressed, I started to see the white spots progressing down to my knuckles and then further and further. So my mother advised me, she said, listen, just try to take care of yourself, eat healthy, get exercise. The doctors don't really have an answer for you. Just
Right.
live your life, and you're going to be fine, and she said, maybe in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you can go back to another doctor and they could tell you something else.
Right.
But she says, just live your life. And as easy as that was for her to say, I was still kind of afraid. I was still
Right.
very petrified of working in the public,
Right.
especially working with food. you know? I'm like, and there were a couple of times where some people did kind of have that panicked look on their face as I was giving them their plates of food or taking it away, and they would ask questions. And sometimes they didn't have a very solid answer because I didn't know either. And I think that
Right.
that was like one of the most frustrating things as an early vitiligo patient. People would ask me, what's wrong, or and I would say, what, I don't know, but it doesn't hurt.
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't hurt. It's not irritating. It's not getting red, and it's not contagious. I think that's like the biggest. And once they knew that it can't be passed on to them like a
Right.
virus, they were okay, So, but it was those first, I want to say the first 5 years of the vitiligo diagnosis were very hard for me. It was a constant struggle. And, I love my mom. She's my biggest advocate. And but people could people they could puff you up and they could say a lot of positive things, but they don't really know
Right.
unless they're walking in those same shoes. They don't really
Yeah.
know.
I I I think that's the biggest challenge
Yeah.
of getting people to understand. Yes, you can encourage us. Yes, you can say positive things about living your life. Don't worry about it. Don't stress. You're this, you're that. But when you're living with the condition, you have your moments where you feel many different things. If it's not a mental game, it's an emotional game.
Yeah.
Sometimes physically, I don't feel like it, because now I'm not feeling my best. I want to go out in public, but I don't want the public reaction, and
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, those first couple of years, because I remember I was going to church with my mom, and we had there's a lot of church events, like every couple of months there was something, banquet or something going on, and Bible studies and parties and different things, and because I was so self-conscious of my hands, especially because I look back at some pictures and I was like, oh my goodness, yep. I said, my hands you can't even see them. They're in my pockets, or
right, right,
I pose with them, in the back of my, in the back somewhere, or I
right,
had long sleeves on, or, something to hide, because the shame and embarrassment factor was so great.
right,
And I had to do a lot of acting, like everything was just peachy and rosy, and
right,
it wasn't. But in order to have the appearance of you have everything together,
right,
um, because I didn't want to be a prisoner of it, but yet I live with that uncertainty of how much worse is this going to get.
right,
That constantly hung in my mind, for years, like, um, and it was, I want to say in 1999, I was dating a guy in the military. He was in the army, and we went to a party, and at this party there was another gentleman. I have no idea. I can't remember his name, but I saw this gentleman standing in the corner of the room. It was kind of dark in there. There was a little bit of lights in there. And I saw this darker skinned gentleman, and I noticed that he had vitiligo on his hands, just like me. And I was like,
right,
and my mouth dropped open, like, oh my goodness. But I wanted to approach him. I mean, I did approach him, but I wanted to, like, because I was with someone,
right, right,
because I didn't want my boyfriend to see that I was talking to some other guy, the paranoia factors, like, who are you talking to? But anyway, so so I waited until my boyfriend was talking to somebody in the kitchen and he was okay. And I approached the guy with the vitiligo. And he actually said something to me first. Like he noticed my hands first. And he
right,
said, "Oh, we're twins." And he put his hands out. And I was like, "Yeah, hi." So when I got a better look at him, he also had vitiligo on his face. He had half of his black eyebrow was white.
right,
Part of his eyelashes were white. I mean, it was really interesting to me. And I said to myself, am I going to end up like this guy, or
yeah,
what's going to happen? Because he looked intriguing, and I looked at him like, wow, he doesn't look like he's scared. He doesn't look like that has a care in the world about his appearance. This guy looks pretty confident, right?
right,
So I was drawn to that, and so we talked for a few minutes, and he told me that he's had vitiligo for like 10 years. And he was in his late 20s by then. So we were kind of around the same age. So I didn't want to talk to him too long. So so I just told him, nice to see you. I'm so glad that I see somebody in here that looks like me. I said, you have done so much for my self-confidence right now, which was true. So I went back and spoke to my boyfriend about this guy with the vitiligo. And I was like, do you know him? And he was like, nah. And I was like, okay. I said, well, I said, you don't know how much that means to me, because I said, I have had vitiligo for several years now. And this is the first time of me meeting somebody in person. So it meant a great deal to me. I made a connection with somebody else, and we talked for a few minutes. And it was, we didn't have this in-depth discussion, but it was enough for me at that moment to see beauty and confidence linked to vitiligo. And that's something that I did not see at all, not in myself, not in anything. I was like, this guy has everything going on, and I wanted what he had, and it took me a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
It took me I think I was probably in my mid-30s maybe, before I became like really confident with the vitiligo and wearing shorts and short sleeves and everything. I was living in Texas, Mark. And I was living in South Texas, and it gets very, very hot there. The
Right.
weather is really nice. I mean, they do have their rainy seasons, right? But it was like the summer times are hot. It's like 80, 95 degrees, on average every day in the summer. I was not going to wear long sleeved shirts and long pants all summer. It was not going to happen.
Right.
Not gonna happen. I was like, nah, I can't do this. I was like, I need to be free of, all this stuff. So, but I remember I want to say in the year 2003, my mom and I were shopping at the mall after church one day, and my mom sees the counter, the makeup counter. And she says, oh, there may be something here for, cover, total cover, makeup, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, well, I don't know. I was really skeptical because by then the vitiligo had spread from my hands to my elbows to my knees and some other places. And my mom was continually, trying to help me out,
Right.
So she says, well, maybe you can. So we we go to the makeup counter at Macy's, and the lady is telling me about Dermablend. Dermablend just came up on the market. It's great cover, cover all makeup. It's good for vitiligo and other eczema and whatever. So it takes me a while to find the shade, and I go home. My mother bought it for me. I go home with some Dermablend all day powder, facial powder, and also like foundation.
Right.
Okay. It was like $30 for a little thing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh no. So my mother was really trying to be helpful, she still is. So I remember putting some vitiligo, putting some Dermablend on my face and in my elbows and my knees especially. I really wasn't too. I mean, I had a little bit of vitiligo on my face, but not a lot at that time. It was mostly on my elbows and my knees. So I used it on my elbows and knees, on the times that I had shorts on or short skirts. Guess what? the Dermablend makeup, as expensive as it was not built for humidity. It was
Right.
not built for sweat. You know, if it's okay if you're indoors all day and you're staying dry. Maybe now it's better. I don't know if they changed the formula, but 20 years ago, in the hot Texas sun, and you know, and you're moving around, it's like, nah, it started to come off on my clothes. I'm like, this ain't gonna work. So I stopped using it. And then I believe in 2007, I started talking to another dermatologist in San Antonio, and he told me about dexamethasone, which is it's an ointment or a cream, and it's used for people, I believe, with arthritis. It's a really good arthritis. So he's like, this might work for you, but he said it has properties of steroids in it. So I don't want you to use a lot of it at a time. He said, use it sparingly on some of the areas, right? So I said, okay, I'll try it. So within 6 months, this ointment was working on several areas of the vitiligo. And then my doctor said, I don't want you using it anymore, because something to do with it's not good for your kidneys or something like that.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. So I wasn't doing anything. I was not on any medication, no creams, no gels, no nothing for a long time. Until last summer, when I heard about Insight and, you know,
with Opsilora.
The Opsilora.
Yeah, let's get to that in a minute. You know? Let's hold off on Opsilora. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. I do want to backtrack on one thing. You was talking about the gentleman with his confidence.
Yes.
And with vitiligo, the one thing we have to recognize, even, you know, people that are newly diagnosed, those of us who have been in the game for a while, we know we have to go to work. You know, if you want to eat, you go grocery shopping or you go out to eat. There are things you have to do. And there are times when we have to put on this armor, so to speak, that we walk with confidence. You know, when we're out in public, depends on your job too, what you have to do. I feel like even as a teacher, I have to be confident in front of my students and not even think about my vitiligo. Now, what happens when I get in my car might be a different story. Because then I might remember, oh, somebody said this, somebody looked at me this way. But in the presence of other people, you can always put on that facade and say, yes, this is me, I'm confident, I'm good. But behind closed doors, and some of the men talked about that, it is a struggle where we, you know, out in front of people, we're great. You know, yes, I'm gonna walk with my chest up and, you know, my head up, my chest out, and, you know, I'm good. And get in the car and be like, can't wait to get home. You know, or you talked about the shorts. That is a true thing, you know, with our community. Like, you may want to wear shorts, but you have to be confident in your own skin at that point to do so. I have my moments. Like this past week was my spring break. I wore shorts every day just to push myself to wear those shorts. Now, is it a struggle sometimes? Yeah, because I said, okay, I'm going to go on to Target today. I'm going to go into Walmart. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go in this restaurant with my shorts. And that's how I push myself sometimes. And that's something we have to do. And you mentioned, you know, your mom being a big support. And, you know, we have friends that support us, but they often don't know the struggle for us to get there, you know. And sometimes they don't understand the struggle. When I say, yeah, I might put on shorts and walk out the door and turn right back around and put on jeans, just because I can't do it today. I'm not that confident, you know, today. And it is a day by day cases, you know, where, okay, maybe I'm good today. Tomorrow, maybe I'm not. Or there's a festival I want to go, but I don't want to be around people because I don't feel like dealing with
Yes.
the looks, the
Yes.
stares, the
Mhm.
comments, the whispers, which I
Mhm.
often say the whispers are louder. I'd rather you speak out loud because when you're standing near me or behind me going, I could hear that. I heard what you said, you know. Um, but those are the things we have to deal with from time to time with people living with vitiligo. Although we can walk in our strength and we got this, we still have our moments of vulnerability and we still need
Yes.
that encouragement, that support. But the biggest thing I think we need from other people is understanding that we're not going to be on top of our game every day, even
Mhm.
if it looks like it, you know, like
Yeah.
um it is just reality. All right, so let's go forward again. Opsilora. So you mentioned that Insight is the company that created Opsilora, and for people out there, there are commercials. They all have there are three different commercials right now. From actually,
Mhm.
there's four commercials from Opsilora. One features the gentleman Omar from Canada.
Mhm.
There's another one with the lady that opened up a store like a restaurant, or maybe,
Right.
and then
But
there's
you
another one with the lady that's running.
okay.
And there's a new one that features Ben Brown.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a young kid. I've seen him online a couple of times. And I think he's in some new online ad with Winnie Harlow. So he's out there. I think it's the
Oh
same
wow.
person, but he's out there like they're. I guess it's supposed to be like a school group, and they're out in the woods with their group, and maybe they're supposed to be at the zoo. But then at the end, it shows Ben, and he's looking at the space shuttle take off, and
Mhm.
that's the Opsilora's, not Opsilora, that's Insight's new commercial. If you click it, it is for vitiligo.com, if I'm not mistaken. But
Okay.
it actually takes you to a site for Opsilora. So to give you more information about Opsilora. So
Very
there's some
good.
representative.
I've only seen two of those
Oh
commercials. I don't
gosh.
know if they're not showing them in my market right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, I already said maybe
Uh
it's in my market because I was
yeah.
watching Disney Plus a couple
Uh-huh.
weeks ago, and the commercial
Okay.
with Ben showed three times back to back.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I have the Disney
Disney.
Plus that
Okay.
with the
Okay. I
commercials.
don't have Disney Plus. Maybe that's it.
And I'm like, wow, Disney must have paid for this ad because it's running
That's
back
true.
to back. And I've seen it
Wow.
just on regular
Wow.
TV with the commercials. Um, One time I was at a restaurant and there was a gentleman sitting across from me, and the Opsilor commercial came on. The first one with Omar, and the guy kind of looked at me, and I was like, yeah, that's not me, but yes, I have vitiligo too. And he just kind of gave you that nod, like, okay, and just kept eating. But have you tried Opsilor yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
And
share your story.
Opsilora is I started my success story with Opsilora. Um, Started using it in 2020. Actually, it was 2023. Not even my okay. So in 2023, I first saw the commercial with Omar, and
Right.
then Alicia Roofs, who
Mm-hmm.
is vitiligo leader for Minnesota Vit Friends. She did a video, and she did a video and she put it on YouTube, um, about the whole process of getting Opsilora, uh, for people who are uninsured and had all these things and loops and everything to go through.
Right.
So in the summer of 2023, my insurance company was not covering Opsilora. So I spoke to my dermatologist in November. No, hold on. In October of 23. And sh and my dermatologist, she knew all about Opsilora, and she says, okay, she says, I'm going to try to get this for you. I'm going to try to get you the approval and get this and get that, because I really want, she says, I want to see results, on some of her vitiligo patients. I don't know how many vitiligo patients she has total. I'm just one of them, but
Right.
so she was really excited about getting me to try Opsilura. So I got on the Opsilura Cares program, and I had to go through this whole application process, and then the dermatologist had to answer some questions and do all this stuff. Within a month, I got the call from the folks at Insight, wanting to know just a little bit more information on my vitiligo journey, and so so in January of 24, I got my first 2 tubes of Opsilura in the mail. It's delivered from, what is it, UPS? I think UPS, I think, is the shipper. So started using Opsilura, use as directed, put on the vitiligo affected areas in the morning, and then again at night. By the 6th week, I started to see some changes on the Opsilura on my face, and I was pretty pleased with that. I started taking pictures, progression pictures of the different areas of progress using this project. By the time I got to the VitFriends conference in Indianapolis in June, I actually put together a little collage of pictures, and I put it in like a big old poster. It looked really nice because I wanted to show the folks at Insight at the conference, hey, this stuff is really working for me. So I did that. I talked to some of the folks at Insight. They were so excited that I bought the pictures, the poster board, and everything. And they said, Lisa, we work so hard so we could hear testimonials like this from our patients. At that time, Opsilura had repigmented probably about 65 to 70% of the vitiligo on my face within 6 months. It's a lot better now. I still have some vitiligo on my face. You can't really see because of the lighting. But in the morning when I don't have any makeup on, I still have just a little bit of white under my eyes. I got a patch here under my hair, a little bit here in the corners of my mouth. That's it. So I'm still going to faithfully use Opsilura. It's mainly working on my face. Unfortunately, it's working very slowly in some of the other places. It's working very slowly on my elbows. I mean, there's a little bit of repigmenting, very slowly. So, and my knees too. So a little bit of repigmentation on my knees are happening. My dermatologist gave me the reason why that it takes so long for the knee, because of the bone and stuff like that. Nothing going on the feet. I've given up on repigmentation on the feet and hands. So
yeah, and what I've learned from talking to some of the doctors with the Global Vitiligo Foundation, there are more hair follicles. That's what you need, and they are more in our face than anywhere else in our body. Although we can look at our arms and be like, "Oh, my arms are hairy," but they're looking at the actual follicles. And so all the treatments that have been out there are really designed to work on the face. Although with Opsilura, you can apply it to like other parts of the body, like you said, the hands and knees, but it's going to take so much longer to see results. And I think like somebody like me, I'm not that patient. Like I'm good at this point. I'm like, my feet are almost white. I'd rather them just to be white than patchy. And my hands are starting to turn. My hands are starting to get whiter. But I'm not against treatments. I just don't want it for myself. If it's going to work for somebody else, by all means use it. And I do support people on using it because it is, I've seen it on TJ where it was working well for him. I'm not sure if he's still using it or not.
Okay.
Alicia, I was following her journey as well. And I had it when I had the radio podcast, she was on and we talked about her journey and what it did for her. I don't know if she shared it with you. It started turning her skin orange. But that
Ooh.
was her skin. So it's
Mm.
different for every person.
Yeah.
Some people respond well to the treatment. Some people will respond well, but for her, it was almost working too well. So now it's changing her skin darker than what it originally was. So, um,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I haven't talked to Alicia to find out if she's still using it or not, um, or if she's using less of it. And I guess it all depends.
Yeah, because that was one thing too that I told my dermatologist last time that I spoke to her in November. I said, listen, I said I've noticed that in the time been using the Opsilura on my face, I said parts just a little bit of the repigmentation around my eyelids have actually turned a little bit darker than my actual skin tone.
Right, right. The hyperpigmentation, yeah,
So I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay, so this is going to be really interesting. So I've kind of left that area alone, but I've left that alone. My dermatologist just advised me. She said, you do what you're comfortable with. If
right.
you feel that you
Absolutely.
don't want to put it on certain areas, that's up to you. I'm not gonna, advise you to to completely go nuts and to put it, on
Yeah.
every area. Um, she says, you are in control of this kind of sorta, because vitiligo has a mind of its own.
Absolutely. It's gonna
Uh,
do what it wants to do. Yep.
and and that's, when people talk about the stress of living with vitiligo, I think that's another big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Because I've told people over time, it's like, listen, if I knew that I was gonna wake up tomorrow morning with a big old spot on the back of my neck. I would wear a turtleneck, or I would wear
Yeah.
something or a scarf or something to kind of hide that. Or if I knew that I was gonna have a big old, oval on on my shin, or
Yeah.
on my leg somewhere. Yeah, that's so we have no control over where the next
Right.
spot's going to be or what shape it's going to take on,
It
so that's
yeah.
part of the anxiety
It
right
it
there.
is. And it's
Yeah.
weird. So
People don't
for people,
understand that.
right. And it's gonna look
Yeah,
different for every person. I often tell people, because Katrina
yeah,
and I did it was like a health fair, and we set up a booth and set up a booth rather, and we talked about vitiligo, what it is, what it isn't, and we explained to some people if we had 20 people in a room, it's going to look different on each person. And I know I did a couple of not clinical trials, but I had talked to some organizations and they were doing publications and they wanted to get feedback. And what I shared with them, I said, you have 5 people on your flyer, your brochure. They all look exactly the same. Like they wanted everybody with vitiligo on their face. I said, well, that's not a true representation of vitiligo. I said, you should have a variety of people, someone with it just on their hands or just on one side of the shoulder, or somebody that you can't see at all until they have vitiligo because it's in places that you can't see. I said,
right,
that's a true representation. It's not on everyone's face.
yeah,
Yes, I do have it on my face, and people go, no, you don't. Well, I have it around the corners of my mouth. I have facial hair. I can
mhm,
hide it. The spot on my neck here is starting to get bigger. It used to be a small white dot for like 20 years,
mhm,
and all of a sudden it's starting to spread. Um, I've had my vitiligo about the same time as yours, around 96. And I find it fascinating with vitiligo that I can have it so long and not have as much spread as somebody can get it and have it for or develop the vitiligo in 3 years and have lost almost all their pigmentation.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what we often say. It has a mind of its own. It's going to be so totally different for everybody. Every experience is different. Am I still losing pigmentation? Yes. Yesterday I
Yeah.
was looking, I had on shorts and I'm looking at my spots. I'm like, oh, huh, I'm losing some more color because you can see where it goes from the vitiligo
Mm-hmm.
spot. There's a light brown, then it's my regular skin color. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
there we go, losing color. And it's like, what can I do? I'm just looking at it like, oh well, that means it's gonna be white in a couple of weeks. And it's weird because somebody
Yeah.
living with the condition, you can look at your spots and you be like, oh, they're
Mm-hmm.
starting to get closer. They're getting closer. And next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a big spot now.
Kind of
Like,
paranoid, but you don't want to
what the
be
heck?
paranoid.
Yeah, and I follow my vitiligo through my hand. This hand used to have a face. I used to call it my rabbit, where it had like rabbit ears and it had two eyes and a mouth. Now it's starting to merge and it doesn't look like it anymore.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
my it used to stop here, but now I notice my fingertips are all white, but I don't pay attention to it until I do. Then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I'm changing again. But it is what it is. I think if you need support, you need that treatment, you need whatever. And this is the thing about treatment, it is a treatment. So that means you're gonna have to use it for the rest of your life if you want results. It is not a cure. I've
Right.
actually had a nurse here say to me, "Oh, there's a cure for vitiligo." I said, "I'm
No, no,
sorry, there's
honey.
not a cure.
No, honey.
I said,
No.
it's called Opsilura. It's created by an organization called Insight. I said, it is the best thing on the market, but it's not a cure." She said, "Oh, you know
Right.
about that?" "Oh, yeah, I know a lot." I mean, sorry, I'm well informed. But that's the thing. There are treatments. And I'm gonna say this about treatments too, real quick. People, if you're listening, if you are on these sites like Temu and AliExpress and all these other sites and they have a vitiligo treatment, do not buy it. Do not buy it. It has not been FDA approved and you don't know what you're going to get. And I notice, like, I shop on AliExpress, I buy stuff, the things I like, but not that. But I notice, like, why am I getting ads for vitiligo? At some point, I was like, wait a minute, there's a tracker on my laptop or something that notices I have vitiligo because I'm starting to get like information about vitiligo, like, hey, it's a vitiligo cure. And I'm like, no, no, people, don't
No.
buy it. No, it's going to cause other issues. We do have Dr. Harris, who was, and he has some medical, gosh, I forgot what they're called, but like his clinical trials that he was doing and his other medical reports that he put out there about his breakthroughs with vitiligo. He's very close to making a breakthrough. However, in that one, I can't remember what it's called, some medical review, maybe that's it. But it basically stated that it created some other health issues in like the lab mice they were testing it on. And the one thing he doesn't want to do is say, this is great, it's approved, but it causes other health issues.
Right.
We don't need that.
No.
Vitiligo is, let me say this for people listening, it is not going to kill us. It's going to make us look different. It is going to stress us out. Yes. As
Mhm.
much as people say don't stress,
It's just
yeah,
the
it's
opposite.
not it's
Yeah.
not it's not your skin that's changing. It's my skin. So I'm gonna stress at times, then I'm gonna be good. Um yeah, vitiligo is not contagious. We can't just touch you. Now, if you think it's contagious and you're talking to me, yeah, I might just touch you. Just, oh, you're contagious now. You have vitiligo. No, it doesn't work like that. And it's not. I know. Was it last year or year before? There was an article on Facebook circulating, and it came from somewhere in India, calling vitiligo white leprosy. No,
Oh boy.
vitiligo is not related to leprosy at all. It is not contagious. Doesn't cause boils. Doesn't kill you. It's not. It's more related to eczema to a certain extent, but
Mhm.
severe vitiligo will remove all of your pigmentation because your immune system is attacking your melanocytes.
Mhm.
However, I met someone, and maybe I'll try to get it back on the podcast. When I went to the Coalition of Skin Diseases Hill Day, she had severe eczema that if it wasn't treated, it could kill her.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so I'm gonna see if I can reach out to her and see if I can get her back on the podcast. She was on my radio show, and to me, like when I went there, it was a humbling experience because with vitiligo, we're like, oh, got vitiligo, my skin, oh, look at my skin, it's turning white. Yeah, we do that. But when I went there, I'm going, oh, there are other people with skin diseases, but their skin diseases are deadly. I'm not gonna die
Yeah,
if
it's
they don't
really
get
pretty
treated.
humbling.
Yeah, if they don't get treated, they could pass away. If I don't get treated, I'm just turning white, only in skin.
Yeah.
Um, and before we switch to something else, self identity is very important. I've heard people in our community saying, and some people could get upset with me, and I get it, that I'm turning white. No, you're still black. If you were born black, if you're born Latino, if you're born
Absolutely.
whoever you were born, you're still that person. You're just losing the color of your skin, but it does not take away your identity. Doesn't take away your culture. It doesn't take away how you were raised by your family, your religion. It doesn't take any of that away, unless you wanted to. You know, um, I'm losing color, but I'm still black. Like, yeah, I just have white patches almost a whole white hand, but it doesn't make me somebody
Right.
I wasn't born. And and I did say in one of I think it was the virtual conference we had, that it doesn't take away, like I said, your culture. It doesn't make you white. And if you don't believe me, go out into society and do something silly, and you'll learn exactly who you are, because they will remind you that if you're
Yeah.
black, you're black. Or if you're born this, you're born, in this culture, people will remind you. And that's the thing. It just takes away your color. Like, it doesn't take away your facial features. No.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
if your hair is curly, it's still gonna be curly. If your hair is straight, it's gonna be straight. Might have some white streaks in it. Yeah, it might be a little different, or thinned out. I mean, vitiligo does that. But it's just the nature of vitiligo. It doesn't take away who you are as a person, unless you're trying to change yourself as a person. That's a totally different story
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the conference real quick, and then we'll kind of wrap things up. Was that your first conference in Indianapolis?
No, it was my second.
Your second? Which one was your
Only
first?
second. Worcester. 2018
Oh,
was
okay.
the first. Yeah. Um, that's when, I mean, I think I saw you there.
No,
When
I did.
I,
No, I wasn't at that
no,
one.
you weren't there? Okay.
No, I actually didn't
Oh,
join the
I'm so sorry.
community. No, it's fine. I
Okay.
didn't join the. No, 2018, I was still hiding.
Okay.
2019, I was finally like, I need some support. I can't keep doing this, because I was the guy wearing the jeans in the summer and burning up and doing summer camps with the kids. And when they went swimming, I'm sitting on the side looking like, oh, they have so much fun. I just want to get in that water. It looks so cool. But I'm not getting in that water because they're gonna see my white feet and legs. But so I didn't really get active till 2019, and then like September of or October of 2019, I did like my first presentation for a student living with vitiligo, and then it kind of, we went through the pandemic, and I was very active with Vit Friends, doing a radio podcast and doing some live shows and stuff, but virtual live shows. And no, so my first conference in person was actually Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah. And previously, before that, we did a summit, a men's summit in Atlanta, and then I did
Oh, that's great.
Minnesota. So unfortunately, though, I'm gonna miss Tampa this year. I have school stuff to do, and I was like, I can't not
Yeah.
do my school stuff, so I'm gonna have to sacrifice missing the conference this year, but maybe next year.
Yeah, I've only been to two conferences because there was always something going on with me, like either with with my family or a financial thing or something going
Right.
on with work, or there's always, that's why I've only been to two. So this will be my third conference. God willing, I'll be able to go. I'll be
Right.
able to go, and I'm using some of my PTO, so my workplace already knows. So I just gotta, work some extra hours to, to pay for expenses. But this is my first conference, and I'm so excited because last year my dad was able to accompany me to
Right.
Indianapolis, and we drove from Buffalo. It only took us like 8.5 hours. I mean,
Oh wow. Okay.
we stopped an hour for lunch. We stopped. We could have been there a little bit earlier, but we made like really good time.
Okay.
But last year, my dad and I drove down to Indy. Yeah, we was like another road trip, and then this time my mom is flying in from Texas to come to meet us at Tampa. So my dad and I, so we're all flying from different locations to Tampa this
Right.
year, and I'm super excited because my mom has never been to a conference, and I so want her to talk to some of the doctors,
Right.
about some of the different developments that's going on. I spoke so highly about Dr. Harris and you know um and and hold on, and Dr. Grimes,
Hmm.
some of the other ones, and I'm like, Mom, you gotta meet these people because they're so they're working on our behalf, and they're working so hard, so we don't have to fight so much, especially like for the young kids.
Right.
My heart really is sensitive to the young children right now who are struggling through school and struggling through life with vitiligo. Yes, we all know that kids are resilient. Um, However, like you said, because when you're out there in the public, yeah, you can put on this whole persona,
Yep.
but when you're by yourself, when that child is in back at home in their room, and they're crying, and they're depressed because of somebody said something to them mean at school or at the store or whatever, because I know how mean kids can be. Children
Hmm.
have not
Oh yeah.
changed in 40 something years since I was that age. They're still, based on, how their parents are, whatever circumstances, neighborhoods, whatever. So um I advocate, and I really do what I do in the Buffalo area for the young kids,
Yep.
um, because I know it's hard for them. For the grown-ups, like you and I, yes, it's hard, but not as hard. Not I, but like you said, I really want to be there for the little ones, and
Yeah.
maybe one of these years I'll get with Dr. Grimes, and I'll volunteer, one of the years at the conference and work with the little kids, and not really be there for my benefit, but with the kids camp, I just,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
and I think
um,
what actually helps kids too, if they're in especially in the school, because this is what I
yeah,
noticed just on my end, having somebody, because one of my students last year, she had vitiligo also. So
mhm,
having a teacher or seeing an adult with vitiligo,
mhm,
that that's pretty much, when I'm there to teach. I'm not thinking about my skin. I'm not thinking about this and
mhm,
that. It normalizes it for the kids too, when they see
mhm,
somebody.
mhm,
But on average, though, you don't see people with vitiligo. I know we're out there, but I
mhm,
can go months without seeing anybody with vitiligo. Um, so that means that when I'm out in public, I have to be that representation. When I'm at school,
yeah,
I have to be that representation. And I want the kids to see Mr. Braxton is normal. Well, he's
yeah,
silly at times, but he's still normal.
mhm,
Or
mhm,
he's cool, or he's gonna crack a joke. He's gonna speak to me, so they can see that it is okay to see somebody that looks different.
mhm, mhm,
Um, if and I think that's gonna help our students too as they get older or they're in middle school, elementary, whatever,
mhm.
to see other kids and know they're okay. They just look different, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I know it's gonna be different school by school, Each school is
right.
different. I think my school has been blessed not just to have me as a teacher, but Katrina, who is the other leader for North Carolina, for the North Carolina Vitiligo Support Community, her grandson has been through the school, so they have seen Katrina
Oh,
all these
nice.
years as well. So they've seen people with vitiligo
Mhm,
and realize it's
mhm.
okay. We actually had two students last year with vitiligo. Um,
Yeah. Oh, that's
so
great.
it makes it, when you have that representation, it makes it easier for your students to accept it and for
Right.
other students to stand up for somebody if you're bullying or picking with that person. But if you're in a place where nobody's ever seen vitiligo, as much as we wish everybody has seen it, there's some people that have never seen. They might have seen Winnie Harlow because that's what everybody seems to say. Oh yeah, Winnie
Mhm.
Harlow. But when you see somebody in person, it's almost like, wow. Now, um, and sometimes, yes, when you talk about kids being cruel, in particular, are young teens, preteens and young teens. They're a little unfiltered. I learned that the other day. I had my shorts, so I just finished walking. I said, "Oh, I'm gonna go get me a tea." And I was, in line, and the two young ladies walked in, and I don't know if this was geared towards me or what, but they were behind me, and the young lady was like, "Ew, ew, I'm about to throw up." And I was like, is that towards me or whatever? And I was like, you know what? Just you here for a different purpose. Go get your tea and leave. But my first instinct was to, you talking to me? I didn't say it, but
Yeah.
I did look, but I
You
didn't
were
say
thinking.
anything. Yeah, because when you live with vitiligo, you hear stuff. People say things.
Yeah,
They don't know
that
what to
is
say,
true. Yeah.
especially if they've never been around somebody with vitiligo or seen it in person. Yeah, our skin is different. It's always going to be different to you. It's not like yours. It's not like anybody else's. It's all different. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I really try to have fun with the kids. I mean, that's like my time to to really get my humor going. I remember like one of my first encounters when I started getting vitiligo on my elbows, and I was at a grocery store. I'll try to be quick with the story. I was at a grocery store, and there again, there was a child and an adult behind me, and I had short sleeves on, and the little boy behind me said, "Oh, look, mommy, look, she looks like a cow, mom. Look,
yeah,
look." And and I said, "Oh, you're talking," and I said, "You're talking about this? Yeah. I guess I do kind of look like a cow." But I said, "You want me to start going moo,
yeah.
moo in the garden?" And I started mooing like right there where I was. The little boys just started cracking up. And
You
the
gotta
mother
have fun
told
with
me,
it.
the little boy said, he's and he said, the mother said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. He gets a little out of sorts sometimes." And I'm like, "Listen," I said, "my skin," I said, I have a skin condition. It's not contagious." I'm like, "Hey," I said, you want to touch my elbow?" I said, "Go ahead, touch it. Touch my elbow. Go on. Touch it. Touch that white spot right there." And so he looked at his mom, then he looked at me like, "Are you serious?" Yeah. I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Go ahead."
Mhm.
So I said, "See, it's nice and smooth." I said, "But if you touch a cow is hairy, right? It's not going to feel the same."
Right.
So, so I wanted to give him something that he would remember me by,
It-
and he didn't say anything else after that. I mean,
and
that
he's
kind of
probably gonna
quieted,
respect it. Yeah. The first
you
thing that came to
know.
my mind, you should have got a string, right? Like the old little toy we used to have. You pull it, and the cow goes moo. Yeah, I might need to find one of those. And every time my kid brings it up, I'm just gonna pull it and yeah. But the kids are funny. Kids are unfiltered.
Mhm,
They speak their
mhm,
minds, and I think
mhm.
we have to learn how to address the child. The adults are
Yeah,
the ones that should know better.
absolutely.
And I think
Yes.
I think when an adult doesn't know, that's their ignorance. But
Right.
also, and we're going to wrap things up in just a second, but when people notice that we're not comfortable in our own skin, we become a target. If they see that you're comfortable, most
Mm-hmm.
times they'll speak, they're not going to focus on your vitiligo. They're focusing on you and how you carry yourself. But if I felt like
Mm-hmm.
I walk in a store or whatever and I'm looking timid or, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
can become a target. And there's some people that look for the weak,
Mm-hmm.
the weak one in the bunch. Oh, I can target that one.
Yeah.
He's not comfortable. He's not confident. And so I think it's too how we carry ourselves depends on how
Mm-hmm.
people are going to respond to us.
Yeah, that's true. And I've gotten some, I mean, I got to say this, the early days of my vitiligo diagnosis was a lot more stressful for me. Granted, I live in a different state now. New Yorkers are just different. I think in my mind anyway, New Yorkers are a little bit more accepting of
Yeah.
seeing things that are a little
Different.
uh, different, off kilter,
Yeah.
whatever. It's like nothing. I'm not gonna say that nothing bothers us. I mean, talk to Pat Rossi any day. I mean,
Yeah.
she'll, or Tiffany Grant, any one of the real New Yorkers, right? I live on the other side of New York, but anyway, I have gotten some really interesting, comments
Yeah.
from kids, and then gotten some really delightful comments from teenagers and children
Yeah.
that really blew them. I was like, wow, thank you. I mean, they were really super nice. So, and there's actually a lady at one of the local dollar stores that I normally go to, and she goes, "Oh, every single time that I go there, and she's on the register, she has to, I don't know this lady. Anyway, she goes, "Oh, there's the woman with the really pretty skin." She has to make an announcement like when I
Right.
walk in. I'm like, and other people are like, "What? Huh? Huh? Okay."
Yeah, we have vitiligo on aisle 5. There she is.
Because last year she said that I was the first person with vitiligo that she has ever seen,
Yeah.
in person. She knows about Winnie Harlow. She knows about John Hamm. She knows about
Right. Right.
some other people. There's a wrestler with it. Again, I don't know his name. But I'm the first person in this era that she's ever seen.
Right.
So she gets super excited when she sees me come in the store. I'd rather have that kind of reaction than the negative reaction.
Right. Right. And, and
Um,
and that's how it should be, you know. Or even get to know us beyond our skin and understand and
right.
learn who we are as people. I think
Yes.
that's more important than anything. I don't want to
Absolutely.
be known as the man with vitiligo. I
Right.
want to be known as Mark. And it was and
Oh,
that's
we
how
do
it
have
is
a
at
name.
school. I don't want to be
Mhm.
known as the teacher with vitiligo. It's just, oh, that's Mr. Braxton. And it's funny, I was at the park walking on Saturday, and this little boy pulls up on his bicycle, stops me. Hey, Mr. Braxton. I don't know him. He obviously attends my school. He's in like first grade. I'm like, hey, strange little kid talking to me. Where's your parent? And then finally his grandfather pulled up on his bike. He was like, hey, grandpa, this is Mr. Braxton. I was like, hey, yeah, I'm a teacher at the school,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm not some random stranger with weird skin. No, I'm a teacher. And he's like,
That's
yeah. And he
awesome.
said, yeah, my brother goes to the school. I have no idea who this kid is, but he obviously
Wow.
knows me. And it wasn't like, hey, grandpa, here's that guy with the skin. It was like, no, this is Mr.
Mhm.
B,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Braxton. So I think it is important that, in our journey that people get to know who we are too, and not only
Right.
identify us as that person with vitiligo. There's Lisa with the skin. There's Mark with the skin. There's this person with the skin. No, we are people.
Yeah.
But
That's a very,
reality.
very good point. Yeah. We should be known for our character, how we treat
Yeah.
other people, how we carry ourselves, because that whole thing about, beauty is only skin deep. I mean, yes, it's true, but it starts to become a little dry, And it's like
Yeah,
you're kind of like, it's like, yeah, we've heard this before. We need something else.
right.
It's
But in
almost like,
reality, that's how people gonna identify us. Mark.
yeah,
Mark who? Mark, light skin Mark with with the skin. Oh yeah.
right. Yeah,
Like yeah, Mark with the
I did
skin.
overhear a
Yes.
conversation with some people at work. They're like, "Oh yeah, Lisa, Lisa Toner," and the girl actually,
Yeah,
she has
yeah,
like,
yep.
she has the,
That
she's
stuff,
making this,
yeah.
like, oh yeah, like okay. So we have to continually, extend grace,
Right.
wherever we are, but please have a sense of humor because humor can really heal. If you're the kind of person who is constantly uptight and mean and mad at the world because you think that God gave you this vitiligo and the whole world is against you, if you have that kind of perception of negativity, guess what? You're gonna stay stuck there.
Right.
So like my advice to anyone who has been newly diagnosed with vitiligo or someone who has been living with vitiligo for 20 plus years, please try to find something that gives you joy.
Right.
Do not get stuck in that rut of the what they used to call negative Nelly, right? The complaining person. Find something, one thing a day that'll bring a smile to your face. I don't care how big or how small it is. It could be a favorite song that you dance to when you come home from work or on your way to work in the car, a favorite picture of you and your child, or a trip that you took by yourself somewhere, you had a grand old time. Find something to give you some joy and some peace. And you're going to be a much better person for it. But if you're kind of a grumbling, complaining kind of a person, it's not going to it's like
Right.
a boomerang. It's going to come back at you. It's not going to feel good.
Absolutely.
So you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I have learned, I have lived with vitiligo for 20, gosh, let me
Just
see,
say 20 plus. That's all I would say. 20
20
plus
plus
years.
years, and I'm at the point where 95% of the time I'm pretty cool with it.
Right. Right.
Once in a while,
Yeah, that 5% is okay. Yeah.
there's a little bit of insecurity when I walk into a room that I've never been in. Once in a while, I feel like, oh man, I don't feel like going out today. Once in a while, I feel like, you know what? I'm not going to wear this sundress with with no sleeve. Once in a while, but
Right.
not too often. But this is something that we have to really, how should I say it? We really have to be. It's almost like a chameleon, kind of. You know, um, we are kind of responsible for our own joy,
Right.
and and not listen to all the naysayers out there, and not listen to the naysayers, and don't listen to the negativity in your own head. You
Absolutely.
know, so
Absolutely. And I'm gonna say one more thing, then Lisa, I'm gonna wrap us up. Um, on that note, what you were saying, I fully support those things, and we get into this battle with ourselves about good and bad and negative, positive. And let me say this: just because you have vitiligo, it doesn't make you good. It doesn't make you bad. You make
yeah,
that choice. That is your choice
absolutely.
to
Mhm.
be a good person. You make the choice to be a bad person. Vitiligo doesn't do it for you. So you can't blame it on vitiligo. Well, I'm a good person because I have vitiligo. I'm a good person because
That's
I'm a
so
bad person
true.
because I have vitiligo. No, it's a choice we make. And we want you to make good
That's
choices.
true.
Um,
Yes.
as we see in the world, there's a lot of chaos going on. And we want more positivity in the world. We want more people loving each other.
Yes.
Instead of all the other negative stuff that we're seeing that we're dealing with. But Lisa, I thank you for being here on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it. For our listeners, and I always say this, I hope you hear something in this discussion that really resonates with you, that makes you want to do better, or makes you want to love somebody more, or love yourself more, or just something that makes a change within yourself. That's what I really want. And I always end it like this. And that's how I'm going to continue to end my shows. You know, this world is in need of love. We are struggling with it. We need to continue to love each other, and through the good and the bad times. Our neighbors, love our neighbors, our friends, our family members, even those that we don't get along with. Children are in need of love. We need to love our children. I know some of y'all say, what about my pets? Love your pets too. You know, but most of all, look in that mirror and tell yourself I love you, because we don't do enough of that.
Amen.
And
So
once
true.
again, thank you, Lisa, for being here. You
Thank
have
you.
been listening. You're welcome. You have been listening to Living Life and Love. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. Y'all take care, and remember, love yourself and peace.